disrupted.
Welcome to the Author Spotlight. On this episode, we're interviewing Carew Papritz with his book, The Legacy Letters, His Wife, His Children, His Final Gift. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, it's great to be on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, so let us know why we should read your book.
Why you should read the legacy letters, and not just because it's won a bunch of national awards. That's not a reason to read. Not because it looks very beautiful. Okay, there it is. And it got
Very nice.
and it got awards for design and book. Oh, it goes on. No, don't read it for that. Read it because I'm going to tell you a little story. So I'm at a book signing, the Barnes and Noble, and I love to do book signings. I love it's just a place to get out and meet folks. And this mother and son, they're walking around. It's a slow day, so I'm over there by the table. I say, come on over, and they look at me and I go, no, I'm not the scary author. Come over. So they come over and they say, okay, what's your book about? And the kid's on his cell phone. He's going at it, and I tell him what the book's about, and I will tell you right now to your readers. It's a series of fictional letters written by a father to his children that he'd never lived to see. And these letters become their practical, moral, and spiritual guidebook for them for the rest of their lives. And she said, oh, that sounds interesting. And I said, oh, let me pull the interesting knife out of my back. Because everyone says it's interesting. So I said, okay, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to guarantee this book. And she goes, what? How can you guarantee a book? I said, I guarantee if you turn to any page in this book, read it, you'll turn to the next page, or I'll give you your money back, and you haven't even bought the book. And she goes, sure. So she picks up the book. I turn to the kid, and you too, please read, put down the phone, read the book. So she does. And he does. 1 page, 2 page, 3 page. She puts it down. She says, I'll take 2. I said, what? Yeah, I'll take 2. And I said, I'm stunned. I said, okay. And I was so stunned. She went away to pay for them, comes back, and the kid is still reading the book. And I'm sort of stunned. And I said, can I interrupt you for a moment? Can you tell me why you're still reading this book? And he goes, and he turns to me and he looks me dead in the face and he says, I don't have a father, and I wish the guy in this book were my dad.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And I will tell you, from that moment on, I was not the author anymore. I was the messenger to my book. And ever since then, I've done that at every single book signing, every single reading, ask someone to pick it up, turn to any page. And all of a sudden, it's as if it's a Rorschach test of what that person is going through in their lives. It's phenomenal. It's a secret little thing that happens within the pages of the book. I had a guy do it one day, and same sort of thing. And he says, I'll take 5. And I go, what the heck? It's just like this strange thing. I says, what letter did you read? He says, The Art of Work and Working. And I said, what? And I said, why is that? And he says, well, I just got a raise that I haven't been able to get in about 3 years. And what the one of the lines in the book the father talks about is, do your work like you're shining God's shoes, or something to that effect. Basically, you do it because you have to do it inside yourself and be the best person you can at work. And he says, this is phenomenal. So it goes on and on and on. But at the heart of it is, I think when I wrote this book, I did it. I had sort of an early midlife crisis. And I say that because it's best to have them early. I was working in the, of course, I was working in the feature film industry in Hollywood, in the art department. And I started to sort of see like, I don't know if I could stick around this whole movie industry thing. And people were making a lot of money, but weren't happy. And so I started doing a drive about around the West. I ended up on a ranch, going somewhat full circle. My grandparents had a ranch growing up. And I ended up there for the next 5 years working as a cowboy. I picked up the pen again and wrote the legacy letters. And the reason I say that, this was my Walden Pond time of life, very reflective, very alone. There was no one else out there. I was the only hand or cowboy. And it was a very revealing, and I even like to say being naked to myself. I was just really to the universe and whatnot. And so I think that's what ended up in the book. And I think that's what people respond to. So a very, very long way to get around to sort of talking about what's inside the book and some of the reactions to it.
So is the book set up like you're reading a letter and then the next chapter or section would be a different letter? Or is it like letters and then a story within?
Yeah,
How does
no,
it
it's
set
sort
up?
of interesting. The writing of it was a very, very difficult write because initially when I wrote the first 100 pages, about this father just writing these letters of life wisdom. And I thought, okay, now I'm going to sit down. I actually hand wrote the first 100 pages, and I sat down there at the ranch, and I said, okay, now it's time to read it. And I read it, and I said, wow, this is real finger waggy. Like, I know better, and I'm going to tell you what's all. I hated it. I was going to burn the book right there and just call it a day. But after a while, these characters starting to come to life and the accretion of the book. And basically, what it comes down to is the father wrote these letters in the last 7 months of his life. And they were written many, many years ago. And it's the fictional setup for the entire book. The letters are then given to the children on their 10th birthday, and they grow up with these letters. They never know their father. He was in a mountain cabin. There was a whole separation. There's a whole other love story that goes on and with his wife, which is, again, we don't have a lot of time to talk about that, but the letters are also not only a love story to his children about how to live life, but also to his wife. And um, so they grow up with these letters, and they decide they want to give 40 of the over 200 letters the father left behind. And that's in this size book. Now, what's interesting for those that have read Tuesdays with Morrie, it's the
Mhm.
same size. And the reason that I chose to design it and put it in that format was because 200 letters in a 650 page book would be a doorstop unless you were a best-selling author. And so I did not want
Yeah.
it to be a doorstop, and we brought it out in this format. And again, it's worked out great. The Legacy Letters Complete is already done. It's coming out next year. So that's what we're doing. So this is an appetizer to the main book.
That's so great. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I read that it's if you loved Tuesdays with Morrie, which I've read, and those kind of books, it's that this will be right up your alley. What I wanted to ask is, I
Yeah.
read somewhere that you've won an award for fiction, but also nonfiction because it's like an inspirational, like
Yeah,
spiritual,
it's
like.
it's so funny to say that. And people go, how can it be both books at the same time? And I go, well, because someone decided that's what they wanted. It takes away nothing from the book, and actually, it adds a bit of intrigue. Like, how can it actually
Mhm.
be that? Well, guess what? Go and read it and go find out. Because I guess what they thought, the letters were so realistic that they thought this was a nonfiction. And what am I going to say? No, take the award away. It's not nothing. I go, that's fine. And what it initiates a conversation just like we're having right now. So I think that lends to the authenticity of the way the letters are written. And a lot of people have come up to me and said, well, are you dying? Are you the guy that's dying in the book? And I go, no, because the guy in the book's already passed away.
Yeah.
I mean, it really sort of plays with your mind. And from the standpoint of structuring the narrative, it was a very difficult, interesting structure because as a reader, you know what's going to happen to the person before he does. And so you have this pre knowledge of his ending as he begins to write these letters to the kids. And really, what's interesting is he follows the seasons, and initially he's writing in a very simple format because he's writing to them at their age of 10, and then he decides to open it up and write to the rest of their lives. And Sarah, if I get a chance, I would love to read a passage or two from the book to sort of give you a feel of what that's like.
Yes, please. I was going to say, I think the reason you probably won a nonfiction award is probably because it's like self-help or spiritual, like people are connecting with it for guiding them in their lives. So I'm guessing that's why it kind of hit that nonfiction.
Yeah, and asking those fundamental life questions, why am I here and what is my legacy and why do I want to do, what am I passing on? And so that's what the father is grappling with in within every single day of the last days of his life over the last 7 months. So it's a very powerful introspective look at that at the same time coming up with this practical knowledge. And so for example, I'll do my own thing here. I will grab a page.
Okay, great.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Just pick
Oh,
one.
I've got to look. All right, all right. Here's a fun one. Time, the first and last gift. And he calls them little ones because he doesn't know their names. So little ones, time. We are only given so much of it. In the big picture, the gargantuan, universal, cosmological, infinity picture, there's quite a bit of time. But in the small geological puff of a lifetime, we don't even rate an eye blink. Time. It's our most precious resource. We forget how rare time is until we realize how little we have left. Like your last gasp for air underwater. Only then do you realize how much you love to breathe. It's a dog trick of our nature not to appreciate what we have in front of us until it is taken away from us or lost. Then we grasp and clutch pathetically at our last scraps of time or breath and love without so much as a hint that we've learned a damn thing about anything. Time, the most valuable gift next to life that you will ever be given.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And it goes on from there. So that's
I
an
love it.
example. Yeah, and oh, this is a fun one here. This is a toast your old man and remember the seasons. And please let me know if I've gone on too long here. So he's
Oh
talking about his love of the seasons. Oh, he's talking about his love of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the sweet dickens because you get to eat the most heaven sent homemade food ever made on mortal earth by the grace and love of your mom and grandma. Even angels have been known to have fisticuffs over your grandma's carrot cake and her German turkey dressing. And I remember your mom with all her Pennsylvania Dutch ancestors spiriting around the flour bowl. She churns out egg noodles and fresh baked biscuits that would tempt Mr. Jack Devil himself to sell his soul for an hour just to partake of your ma's fixings. And he goes on from there. So there's reminisce, there's histories of that. And then, of course, there's the practical knowledge too.
That's great. So it's a story. Like that's what I was wondering. If it was just like this, but it's a proper story. And then it's all hidden
Yeah,
with,
yeah, because it builds through the letters as he's telling the last days of his life. And so you are connecting with him at that level, at the level of every day is a new day. Now, what am I going to explore today? And he talks about this, and it's interesting because in the morning, his letters are much more practical as he's dealing with like I'm waking up, what do I do next? And at night becomes much more introspective, much more thinking about life and his own demise. So yeah, and the story then traverses over this last 7 months. So you do have a feeling of a narrative arc, but it's not in the true story sense that we go, there's a beginning, middle, and end, because why? You already know what the end is.
right. So see it from the beginning. I guess also that would be, I look forward to reading this book because when you have that, while you're reading things that maybe he doesn't know he's dying, you're like more moved by them being like, you don't even know
Sarah,
yet.
thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
saying what's I don't in over the years of people talking about this book, that is the essence of this book. This powerful emotion you have as you come up on this thing, go, oh, I know where you're going. I know what's going to happen to you. And yet you're just experiencing this now. And I'm already experiencing it for you. So it's a really interesting frisson between your what you know and the anticipation of what's going to happen to him.
You mentioned, so there's going to be a second book that's a larger volume with more
Yes.
of the letters. Is that what you're
Yes, with
saying?
all the letters that really encompasses the last 7 months of his life every single day. Whereas this one, they again the children deciding that they want to give the letters. You do have a spring, summer, fall into winter, but they decide they just want letters to represent those time periods. But you still get the feel of the seasons and what he's going through as he goes through these 40 letters. So it's a very simple read. But I love the fact that people, reviewers, and even people have always said this is a great book to put on your nightstand. They call it a nightstand classic. And the nice part about that is that the letters are not that long. They're anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 or 4 pages. So you can read them, you can chew on them, you could sit down with a glass of wine and read a letter. And just it's that, and then you're not forced to go on to like, oh, what's going to happen next? No, the letter itself holds its own. So you can read it on its own, or you can read it on to the next letter. So I think that's one of the nice parts about this.
There is actually mentioning how you said that you'd give it to someone and they just open up wherever, just like you did. There is a book talk trend of people doing that to get like
Really?
stuff. have said it for their love life, and some have said it for whatever. This is my inspiration for today, or what do I need to know? And there's a
Yeah.
trend of people opening a book closest to
No,
them to a certain page number or just whatever. So obviously this book would be perfect for that trend
I
that's going
think that's a
around.
great idea. But Sarah, can they guarantee the book?
I don't know. Probably.
Will they guarantee that if you read one page, you'll turn to the next page? It's so
Uh,
funny. I've only had one person out of hundreds, and they put it down, and I was so shocked. It's always the one person that you remember, not all the others, but the one person says, "Yeah, not my cup of tea." I go, "Okay, that's fine. That one didn't work, but all the rest did." So no,
you remember the
so
one? No,
yeah,
let that
right.
one go.
That's what you do. You remember the 1-star review, not all the other great 5-star reviews. Jeez.
You know what though?
Yeah,
Sometimes those type of people though end up going back. Do you know what I mean? Like people
yeah.
that are like, no, not for me. And then they can't stop thinking about it. Or if we're talking about like inspiration, spirituality, maybe the book keeps on coming up in their lives and they're like, okay, fine, I'll read the book, you
Oh yeah,
know?
yeah. I would love that. Like as my sister-in-law once said, she goes, "Oh, 50 Shades of Grey. I saw it everywhere. It was just I couldn't get away from it. I eventually had to buy it." I go, "Okay, I'm trying to have that problem, but yeah, I mean, we're doing fine." But gosh, to have that problem,
First
that's
of
a
all,
great,
that book, in my opinion, the book
yeah,
isn't very well written. So, and there's other members on the book and drip that have read it that also felt the same.
yeah.
So, if you picked up 50 Shades of Grey because it was everywhere, you should pick up the legacy letters because it probably is better written. And you might get something more out of it.
That's oh my gosh.
Honestly.
I think that's so funny. Um, I have. Do you have a moment for another passage?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Let's do another
Okay.
passage before we sign off. That'd be
Okay,
great.
sounds good. This one there's another one of my favorites, Travel the World, because I love to travel. By the way, just to tell you about the letters, when I wrote them, you would look at them and say, "Oh wow, you wrote them all in order." Farthest thing from the truth. The whole thing was written out of order. I had to put it all together and piece it together, and then piece the fillers in together. It took years to write this particular book, and that's the nature of the beast. In writing other books, maybe it doesn't take as long, but this one, just because you're taking on life, yeah. Funny, a few years ago, I woke up one day and I said, "Oh my gosh, you become a philosopher." Who, what kid grows up and says, "I want to become a philosopher"? What about fireman or everything else, a teacher, whatever the case may be? Not a philosopher. And I just said, okay, you're a philosopher, own it, you know, and you write books. Okay, but that's fine. But I thought that was the darndest thing. I said, yep, here we are, a philosopher who's going to tell you about travel the world. Okay.
All right.
Why does your old man love to travel, little ones? To be changed and to be changed again and again. Because when you travel, really travel, getting down to the towns and people, the land and the culture, you'll be forever changed. Changed into a person of the world, one who has completed the journey into tolerance and acceptance of the world's vagaries and differences. Changed to give a damn about everything and everybody, not just forever riding on the coattails of your own purposefully fenced and tightly mowed backyard of a world. I love to travel, little ones, because of its essential curiosity, that boundless, bottomless human ache of inquisitiveness to explore what's ever around the next corner, over the next rise, or just beyond the horizon. It starts the moment you crawl, delving into every nook, investigating every cranny, until your baby body evolves into a miniature exploring machine. Then you are walking, which, like the explorers of old, puts you at the edges of your old map, now ready to make new. And unless you're taught how to be shackled and chained by societies and your own parents, definitions and deterrences, or to fall without question to all manner of sensibility and security, you will head out into the world with your will to explore and your curiosity intact. And that is what I wish, want, and desire so much for you both.
Ooh, I love it. That's true though. Traveling really does change you.
Yep. Yeah. And that is
Another
what I
culture.
wish. And that is what I wish, want, and desire for all of you, to pick up the legacy letters. I couldn't resist.
And travel with them.
And travel.
Take
Oh my
a
gosh, would that be something?
trip. That's awesome. So, listeners, if you'd like to read this book, you can go to www.bookinterrupted.com/shop. And underneath the author spotlight, you'll find the legacy letters. And then you can pick up that book. It'll go right to Amazon. You can also find the link for the book in the show notes below. Yeah, pick up this book and get inspired.
Sounds good.
Thank
Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show, and good luck to all you folks, and enjoy the read, whatever you're reading in the world. The most important thing is what? To read.
To read for sure. And be inspired.
And be inspired. Yes, thank you. That's great.
If you've enjoyed these video highlights, listen to the full episode on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to like and subscribe and ring that bell to be notified when new episodes are published. Find out more by going to www.bookinterrupted.com.
And we're gonna talk it out on Book Interrupted.